It's done.
Connor McDavid! It's not real!
The goal of the year?
Panarin!
Part of the past. The celebrations? Forgotten. The history?
Vegas Golden Knights!
History. We're back to a blank slate. Clean ice. All that matters now is what happens next. The Stanley Cup playoffs.
Eastern Conference Final begins Wednesday.
Hello, it's the monthly mailbag exclusively for Country Club tier subscribers at the Islanders Anxiety Patreon page. Thank you so much for your support, for your dough, and for your fantastic questions. Mike, this is, we're in the throes of the offseason here. The NHL has a Final Four, but obviously Islanders fans are still thinking and pondering about their team. And boy, we've got some really great questions here. I can't wait to get to a lot of these that are really, really interesting and making us think in different ways. Are you ready to dive into some of these very complex questions?
Oh, yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, let's get right to it. I'm excited. All right, as usual, we start with some, the current affairs, so to speak. And Alex starts us off with the question of the newest Islander. He asks, how are you feeling about the Maxim Tsyplakov signing? I'm trying to ignore how past signings of this nature have panned out, Jan Kovac, Nikita Soshnikov, and feel optimistic that being on the Islanders could be a good situation for him and translate his KHL success over to the NHL. So how much thought have you put into Tsyplakov here? He kind of came out of nowhere. The Habs fans were all kind of hot and ready for him, and then he just shows up having signed with the Islanders. And of course, our great 32 Thoughts podcast is like, yeah, we should have known it was Lou, and then they just moved on. So we haven't had much to go on. But have you looked into this guy yet? Have you scoured the KHL for scouting reports on the newest Islander?
No, and the reason is like I just think we've seen so many situations like this over the years, and it's so hard to tell how a player will transition from that league to this one, especially like the quality. From what I've read, like the KHL's quality has gone down, which makes sense considering the geopolitical situations over there. So a lot of players who maybe would have thought about playing in the KHL then would go to like the SHL or whatever.
Right.
So I just don't know how much you can glean from it. But what I do trust is that if a lot of teams were after Tsyplakov, means that there was he's obviously legit. And the other thing is that if it was, let's say, the Leafs who signed him, as they were who apparently were in,
right.
Could you imagine Tsyplakov mania over at
oh my God.
Like Jonas Siegel would be where is Max Tsyplakov from? He is from Moscow. So he's but he's got a grandfather, Viktor Tsyplakov, who was a Russian Soviet Hockey Hall of Famer. So Jonas would be over there, going into Viktor Tsyplakov's home and doing the story about this guy. But I think it's anyone's guess. I tend to be more pessimistic about these kind of signings when they come to the Islanders because of, as Alex points out, Soshnikov, Kovac. I mean, you could go to Pia Suter.
Sure.
We've had a few guys coming in and out, but I'd love to be proven wrong. It was a fun little jolt.
Yeah. One of these days, these guys got to hit, right? Like one of these things, we could talk about the Kovaches and the Shoshnikovs and the Dmitry Timoshovs all day, right?
Golishev. The best was Golishev. Yeah, when he just like left, and Soroka was like, "Oh, I think you're playing today," and then he didn't play, so then he left.
Right. One of these dudes got a hit, and maybe Tsyplakov is the guy. I don't know. Our friend, you're 100% right about had he signed with the Leafs or with the Habs. To be quite blunt, there would be Tsyplakov mania running all through Ontario or Quebec, whichever team he signed with. But he ends up on Long Island, and in fact, our friend Arthur Staple reached out to an old buddy of his, Shane Prince, who was Tsyplakov's teammate with I forget what team it was, not CSKA, but the other one, and reached out to him and asked him what he was like. And according to Prince, his game will translate to the NHL. He's very much like a power forward type. But then you read other guys that are like, his skating's no good, and he's kind of slow and whatnot, and he's got to come over to the smaller rink and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's impossible to kind of know right now, but I'm pretty happy about it because there's something we've been saying for a long time, or I've been saying for a long time. Is like, if the Islanders are going to use their first round picks for established players, which they've done recently, and we have a question about that actually coming up, they need to find new blood in some different places. That could mean drafting better later in the rounds, which they've done, I think, in certain cases for the most part. Finding NCAA free agents who, frankly, don't always work out, but at least they're just free money, and they picked up a couple of those guys this year too. And maybe scouring Europe and the KHL for new guys too. And Tsyplakov kind of falls into that bucket. So I'm happy he's here. I'm with you. I hope he works and bucks years of trends of guys coming in and not really working. But we'll see what happens. I don't know if we can peg him for a certain spot or a certain place in the lineup or a certain, wingers or line mates, I should say centers or whatever. But we'll have to see. And maybe the Islanders get lucky with this one time. What I do like, though, is that his contract is for 1 year. It's like just $900,000. By the way, if you see any geniuses out there being like, oh, the Leafs should have offered him more money, that's the only money he could have been offered. So don't get into this whole thing. He could have picked anybody. He signed for the same contract, and he literally just picked the Islanders. So there you go. I'm sure having 3 other Russian guys on the team didn't hurt. But if at the end of this contract, he will be a restricted free agent as well. So if he likes it, he likes the island, he likes playing with some of his countrymen, then he could re-sign. And if it's working out, that'll be great. And if he doesn't, well, they could just non-tender him, and he can go back to Moscow and enjoy his life. But Alex, thank you very much for that very prescient and current question. And it was a perfect way to start. Okay. Matt S. asks another great question. My 5-year-old son is just starting to understand things when it comes to hockey. He remembers a few facts here and there, such as Brock Nelson is number 29 and is from Minnesota and is good at scoring goals. My question is, why does my 5-year-old know more about Brock Nelson than the national hockey media? Well, let's give credit where it's due. Most of them probably know that Brock Nelson is from Minnesota. Pierre Maguire knows that Brock Nelson is from Minnesota. Everything else is definitely up in the air. But yeah, that's a good question. You have a very intelligent 5-year-old, Matt. I don't know. Well, do you have an answer for Matt here? Why maybe Brock Nelson is somehow still one of the most underrated players in the NHL, despite having been with the same team for like 11 or 12 years at this point?
Yeah, and you're starting to hear his name now more because there's, we're entering the off season and people are pulling up cap friendly pages and like, oh, I wonder who like the Islanders.
This guy would
maybe
be
they'll
perfect.
trade this guy, Brock Nelson. I hear, he's scored
Right.
some goals. So it's funny that the only reason that now he's getting talked about is because people are wish casting him into trade rumors. So it is funny. Brock is the perfect kind of foil for this exercise, right? Like he's such an had such a good career, and he's such an effective player. And the only people who truly know just how good he is are people who've been paying attention to the Islanders, and everyone else is just finding out about this guy, even though he's been in the league for a decade.
This talented youngster
Contributing for a while. So it's amazing, and I don't think this phenomenon is going to change anytime soon. No. It'll be a lot of people next year. It'll be a lot of talk about Patrick Waugh, and they just won't go further than that.
No, yeah, for sure. We got a lot of Waugh questions coming up too, but yeah, Nelson is a funny case, and a guy who has scored anywhere between 30 and 40 goals for the last 6 years, and is still very much not a known quantity. Although, again, you would think that the Minnesota thing, being the nephew of Dave Christian or part of the Christian family, would be a bigger thing. But this is where Pierre Maguire would really come in handy, and I can't believe I just said that. But a couple of times a year, it's good to have Pierre there to remind everybody that these guys do have bigger roles in the world of hockey. But that being said, I hope I don't hear him on my TV anytime soon. But Matt, this was a great question, very funny one too. Thank you very much. William asks another great question. If you could open up the NHL 24 player editor and adjust the sliders on one stat for any of the Islanders, what players and what stat would you edit for said players? If it was me, I'd add a few more points to Sorokin's rebound control. That's a good one. I think a few guys I would like to add a little foot speed to be blunt. I think Anders Lee, a couple of defensemen, maybe give them a little bit more foot speed. I have honestly not played an NHL game since I think 2006. The one with Eric Stahl on the cover. I guess it would have been 2007. But yeah, I think the foot speed is the easiest one to add there. I know there's like toughness and fighting ability and stuff. You're not a big gamer, but do you have any particular trait that you might slide up for a player if you could?
Can you add shooting accuracy to
Oh, yeah.
Ryan Pollock? That'd be nice.
Damn, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe just throw some of that onto his stick, and then finally the slap shot that gets fawned over can truly be unleashed.
That's a great one. That's a great one. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that would be pretty cool. And if anybody is out there playing NHL 24 and still have time before NHL 25 comes out, it should be in September. So yeah, kick up Ryan Pollock's accuracy. When I was used to play football, Madden and NCAA football with my roommate, we always used to jack up the receivers' receiving ability all the way to 100 because they still dropped passes like that made it kind of normal. Like we thought that was kind of funny. Like, why do I got to move the thing up to 100 to get sort of a normal catching ratio for what an NFL receiver or, NCAA receiver would get? But that was always our first thing to do. But anyway, yeah, there you go. So yes, foot speed for Anders Lee and accuracy for Ryan Pollock. And you have a perfect Islanders team. There you go, William. Good luck. Joseph asks, overall, at a general level, do you think the D-core or forward group needs more work this offseason? Where do you think we'd be more likely to see a splash ad? Islanders level splash like a Brady Shea, not like a Steven Stamkos. That's an important qualifier there. This is a good question. What do you think? I mean, the problem with the defense is that, there's less spots and everybody seems to be kind of locked in, assuming, again, they bring back Mike Riley, who worked out really well. But where do you think, what do you think needs the most work, and where do you think that the team will make a big splash if they haven't already with Tsyplakov? Maybe he's their big splash. Who knows?
Yeah, this is a good question. Because I think it's almost, I'm not going to cop out and say like almost equal, but it does feel that way. Like the forward group just they need to find one person who can just score easy goals, right? Like,
right.
It can't just be Barzal and Horvat and Nelson with you just need one. You need one more guy. Like,
right.
Those guys can score goals, but they work for their goals. Barzal has to do something. Like, you just need someone who can just score, as simple as it sounds. And so like that, I think that's the more pressing need, because I still think you can get through a season with the Islanders D-core playing, or rostered this way. We just don't know. I don't think it can be as bad as they were for the first 4 months of last year. It won't be as good as they were during their salad days, but I still think it's a serviceable group and one that should still reap the benefits of Romanov and Dobson improving and growing into their prime, and hopefully lesser roles for Ryan Pollock and Adam Pelech for a whole season help. Some health would be good. Scott Mayfield didn't play more than 2 periods of healthy hockey in the season, so that's helpful. But so I would say that in terms of just like an off-season splash that can help, like the group that needs a jolt from a splash would be the forward group over the D. Although I think both needs a little bit of work.
Yeah, I would agree with both of that. The getting a game breaker like that is tough. And I mean, everybody wants somebody like that. And to be honest, I think they almost need more of an Islanders like splash. They could most likely make an Islanders like splash in the depth area. Like, they didn't really get a ton of depth scoring this year. I mean, as Matt Martin didn't score, obviously, he's not meant to be, but he still didn't contribute anything offensively at all. Casey Cizikas did, but that was when he was put with Barzal and Horvat. Peugeot is still hampered by whatever it is that's bothering him. Him and Holmstrom made a pretty good pair, but like that right side was a revolving door. So, if they could get somebody in that spot there to help out and take the pressure off of Horvat and Barzal and Nelson and Palmieri and guys like that and solidify that would be great. But yeah, I don't see them. Brady Shea would be great. Somebody else floated that before. Maybe it was Ethan Sears. I'm not sure. And he would be good, but I mean, again, there's only so many spots to go on the D. Yeah, I wouldn't pencil in Steven Stamkos with the Islanders for many reasons. I don't think he's what they need, but somebody who could just contribute offensively, like consistently, because I think that's one of the things that kind of just always their bugaboo is they just can't find a guy who can just put the puck in the net all the time. And as good as Barzal was this year, even he's not, gonna do that all the time, and he needs help because he's out there like killing himself to score goals. But Joseph, this is sort of the crux of the entire offseason. Like, what are these guys going to do? How are they going to augment themselves after a pretty disappointing year? So it'll be fascinating to see what adds they make and where they do it. And again, I would not be surprised if Tsyplakov is their big splash, which would be an Islanders level splash to be sure. But hopefully they don't stop there, but we'll see what happens. But thank you for the great question. Okay. David asks, it was a long question. I had to edit it, but he wrote, after the fourth or so time watching the team celebrate Barzal's double overtime goal, I noticed that the third forward on the ice for the goal half-heartedly patting his teammates in the group hug. Everything became crystal clear when I watched Hudson Fashion's clean-out day interview. He obviously must go. I don't want that type of juju in the locker room. Could Parisi have brought us to the glory land inserted for Fashing for the second half of the season? Well, David, I got to be honest with you. I don't know if I think you're giving Hudson Fashing way too much power in this scenario. I don't think he didn't have a great season. Let's be honest, but I don't think his juju was really hurting the team that much. And well, Zach Parise, he wasn't coming back here anyway. He would rather sign with a team that was actually definitely going to make the playoffs, and he made the right choice. Although the Avalanche lost in the second round, but one round later than the Islanders did. But I mean, I left this here because I just kind of want to open the discussion. We haven't talked about him that much because he was scratched for a lot of time. But like, what do you make of Fashing this year? I mean, obviously it was a big come down from his big revelatory season last year, and honestly, to me, his biggest problem is that Simon Holmstrom, and then for the first half of the season, and then Kyle McLean in the second half of the season, kind of took his job, like as that sort of depth, reliable guy to play, and he was kind of left without a spot. And then, as you noted on his clear out day, he's like, yeah, I didn't want to be that much of a pinch hitter. I wanted a regular spot, and it's like, bro, that's your position is to be a pinch hitter, but I don't know if he's going to figure that out or not. He's still got 1 year under contract. So, what do you make of Fashing at this point in his Islanders tenure?
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I don't think it's fair to say it was like a disappointing year because what are your expectations of Hudson Fashing, right? Like, it's not like we're expecting him to do much better than what he did. But at the same time, I think it's fair to say like he didn't even fill that role well enough to make me be chomping at the bit to get him back. And I think part of it goes back to the question we just talked about, which is like the Islanders have too many players in their forward group playing one step up too many, like on the ladder, because they don't have someone who can fill in on that top line or the second line, and you can then move Palmieri up. Like they've got 4, 5, maybe top 6 players, depending on how you view Anders Lee or whatever. But like they have like a sixth forward. They have like a 1, 2, 4, 5, and a 6. They're missing that 3, like that third guy. And sometimes Hudson Fashing would like be that, not the third guy, but he'd be like the 6, and then bump the 6 up to the 3, and that's just not good. So I think that his role was just asking too much of him. So he's I don't. My prediction right now is that he is not going to play another game as an Islander. I think that he's probably going to get waived or one of those weird trades for like future considerations or something. His cap hit is very easy and manageable. So, but that's my prediction with Hudson, and I do think that that Parise situation actually does make me think a little bit, because losing him, I think, hurt this team a lot more than we'll think about, because of his ability to play on the power penalty kill and just hit. You want to talk about a guy who can find a goal from anywhere? Parise can. Pucks around the net, he'll find it. So, a little tough on how that all ended.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. That's a good point. And Fashing and other players didn't really kind of step up into that Parise role, which maybe nobody was going to. But I'm with you. I think he'll be a Bridgeport Islander next year or playing someplace else. And it's a shame because we were so excited this time last year that he was looking like a guy that, the Islanders were going to have, had found found money somewhere. I mean, we were all riding the Hudson Line. We were all part of the fashing regime, and didn't really work out that way. And I don't know, maybe there was some other things going on underneath there. And I don't think it's necessarily unsalvageable, but his stock has certainly dropped for whatever reason. And we'll have to see what happens. But once the kid comes up from Bridgeport and suddenly starts doing the job that you were doing last year, that's a bad sign. Things aren't going really well. So, David, thank you for the question. I don't know what to make of your kind of assessment there of Hudson's at the 2-0 goal. Maybe he was just tired. I don't know, but we'll have to see where this goes. But it's definitely an interesting question, and he's got an interesting spot right now in the Islanders lineup. So thank you very much. Timothy asks, while we may not have appreciated it at the time, is it possible to trace the Islanders' inability to preserve a lead in the third period to the departure of Leo Komarov? Barry always said his value never showed up on the score sheet. Can you try and trace this theory, please? Who replaced him? Wallstrom. Well, let's be honest. Oliver Wallstrom did not replace Leo Komarov. But I don't know. Does this make sense to you? I mean, you're the bigger Komarov fan of the two of us. I remember when I think of Leo Komarov, I can remember taking penalties in the third period, not necessarily protecting leads. So I don't know. Do you think this makes sense? I mean, what you just said about Zach Parise maybe could be applied to Leo Komarov beforehand, and we didn't even realize it.
Yeah, I do think there's a little bit to this, actually. I think Komarov represents a type of player more than him specifically. Like the Islanders, as noted here, right? Like you lose the Komarovs and even like the Andy Green types, and you're expecting the next wave of middling NHL players to just step in, and so that leaves you with the Fashings and the Richard Panics of the world and such like that, and like Wallstrom and Bellows, right? Like the guys who pushed for the spots, Bellows, Wallstrom, all these guys, and Holmstrom down the line. And I think it's true. Like if you're taking away a guy off the ice like Komarov, who you say what you want about Leo, he would do some absolutely dumb shit on the ice, but if he had a puck on his stick with like 8 seconds left in his own zone against the Nashville Predators protecting a 1-0 lead, like he might do something funny with the puck, but I don't think it's going to end up with a Nashville Predator. He might like dive on it, right, like a grenade. Yeah. I don't think that this is like too outlandish to suggest. I just think the Islanders are, and even like Matt Martin in this situation, right? Like Matt Martin was on the ice for a lot of situation where he probably shouldn't have been on the ice because the Islanders didn't have another of these, coach's pet veteran type like Leo. So I do think there is a little bit to this.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I hadn't thought about it, but I mean, I don't know if maybe the loss of Leo Komarov specifically was it, but loss of that aspect of Leo definitely was it. Like there just wasn't as much tenacity, and the basically saying, you're not getting this puck from me, you're not winning this game. There wasn't enough of that, and Leo had that. Didn't always use it in the smartest way possible, but they just needed some more of that. But again, that was a younger Komarov, so I don't know if a Komarov of this year would have made much of a difference. But it certainly wasn't fun to watch, and they certainly couldn't have been any worse with him out there. So, Timothy, maybe you might be onto something. We have no idea. But I've seen Oliver Wallstrom play. I've seen Leo Komarov play. And Oliver Wallstrom, you are no Leo Komarov, and I think we can be honest. Thanks for listening. And to hear the full mailbag episode, log on to patreon.com/IslandersAnxiety. Sign up for our country club tier. You can hear this and all of our previous mailbags and have a chance to answer a question in the next one. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.